Then comes Aegon, the traditional Targaryen name, solidifying the line, giving everyone that warm, fuzzy feeling of dynastic security. Little Aegon looks every bit the Targaryen prince, silver hair, purple eyes, the whole shebang. And Jocelyn, she pops out more kids than Robert in a brothel, twin, a girl named Visenya and a boy named Daeron. All healthy, all strong, all contributing to that ever-growing sense of Targaryen, well, dominance. This is the Baratheon strength showing up in the children. She's like a damn birthing machine. The Targaryen line is secured ×4. Take that succession crisis. Now here's the kicker. These kids, they're not just pretty faces. They're raised in a loving, relatively stable environment. Jocelyn's a strong mother. She instills in them a sense of duty, yes, but also a sense of compassion. She teaches them to be fair, to be just, and to actually give a damn about the people they rule. Rhaegar, for his part, encourages their intellectual growth. He teaches them history, philosophy, and the importance of understanding the world around them. The result? You've got a new generation of Targaryens who are actually likable. Imagine that. Targaryens that people don't fear. They're smart, they're capable, and they're actually, good people. It's a total game changer. Suddenly the Targaryen dynasty doesn't seem so doomed. This, naturally, has a ripple effect throughout the Seven Kingdoms. The small folk are happier. The lords are more content. There's a sense of stability, of prosperity that hasn't been seen in years. King's Landing almost feels like it did under Jaehaerys. And what about Aerys? Well, that's where things get complicated. On the one hand, he's pleased. His son has finally done what he was supposed to do. He's secured the succession, he's strengthened the dynasty, and he's, seemingly, put an end to all those whispers of rebellion. Aerys loves grandkids. They are reminders of his immortality. On the other hand, Aerys is still Aerys. He's still paranoid, he's still unpredictable, and he's still convinced that everyone is out to get him. And now, with Rhaegar riding so high, Aerys's paranoia only intensifies. He starts seeing conspiracies everywhere. He suspects Rhaegar of plotting against him. He suspects Jocelyn of trying to usurp his power. He starts isolating himself even further, retreating into his own little world of madness. But here's the thing, because of Jocelyn, because of the children, Aerys's madness doesn't spiral out of control like it did in canon. He's still crazy, don't get me wrong, but he's not actively burning people alive, at least not too many. And he's not making any overtly insane decisions that could destabilize the realm. Jocelyn's presence is like a calming influence. She's the sane one by Rhaegar's side when Rhaegar needs her. And now for our good friend Tywin. Oh, Tywin. Poor Tywin. Remember how Aerys rejected Cersei as a bride for Rhaegar? Yeah, that still happens. And now, to add insult to injury, Rhaegar is happily married to a Baratheon, producing heirs left and right. From Tywin's perspective, this is a disaster. The Baratheons, those upstart Stormlanders, are now firmly entrenched at the heart of the Targaryen dynasty. They've got the king's ear, they've got the queen's favor, and they've got a whole gaggle of future Targaryen rulers running. Around, Tywin's resentment grows. It festers. He sees the Baratheons as a threat, as an obstacle to his own ambitions. He wants to see House Lannister rise to the top, and the Baratheons are standing in his way. So, what does Tywin do? He schemes, of course. He plots. He manipulates. He tries to find ways to undermine the Baratheons, to sow discord between them and the Targaryens. But it's hard, because the alliance is strong, and Jocelyn is nobody's fool. She can smell Tywin's BS from a mile away. Tywin becomes like a malevolent shadow in the background, always lurking, always plotting, but never quite able to break through. He's a constant source of tension, but he's not powerful enough to actually start a war. And that's the key difference in this timeline. Tywin never gets the opportunity to unleash his full fury. There's no Robert's Rebellion, no sack of King's Landing, no Lannister dominance. Tywin is forced to simmer in his own frustration, slowly watching as the Baratheons rise in prominence while his own ambitions remain unfulfilled. The ultimate indignity for a man like Tywin Lannister. Speaking of the Baratheons, let's not forget about Stannis and Renly. Stannis, still fostered by Jon Arryn in the Vale, continues to be his usual stoic self. He's happy for his sister, of course. He's proud of her accomplishments, but he also can't help but feel a twinge of envy. Jocelyn is thriving at court while he's still stuck in the Vale, learning about honor and duty and all that boring stuff. But here's the thing. Stannis respects Jocelyn. He sees her as a capable ruler, a worthy ally. He trusts her judgment, and he knows that she has the best interests of the realm at heart. So even if he's not exactly overjoyed by her success, he's willing to support her. Stannis always puts duty first. And Renly? Renly. He's just happy to be along for the ride. He's charming, he's popular, and he's loving the attention that comes with being the brother of the Queen. He spends his days flitting between King's Landing and Storm's End, enjoying the best of both worlds. Renly, being ever the opportunist, sees the advantages to this new world order. He is now one of the most eligible bachelors in the realm. With his sister married to the Prince of Dragonstone and producing future Targaryen heirs, he can basically write his own ticket to a good marriage. He becomes a master of courtly intrigue, playing the Game of Thrones with a smile on his face and a glint in his eye. So there you have it, a prosperous reign begins. Jocelyn and Rhaegar are happily married, the Targaryen line is secured, and the Seven Kingdoms are, relatively, peaceful. Tywin Lannister is seething, Stannis is stoic, and Renly is having the time of his life. It's not a perfect world, but it's a damn sight better than what happened in canon. But does it last? Well, you'll just have to stick around to find out. Okay. So picture this, right? We've got Rhaegar and Jocelyn all hitched up, Targaryen and Baratheon blood flowing strong, heirs popping out left and right. The realm is basically humming along. And Aerys, well, he's still Aerys, but he's got less reason to go completely bonkers, you know, less paranoia, less burn them all. Because, let's be real, a lot of his madness was fueled by the fear of losing control. And with Rhaegar happily married and producing heirs, that fear's dialed down a notch, maybe only a 10 instead of an 11. But here's the thing, Rhaegar was always destined for something. He wasn't just going to sit around twiddling his thumbs while his dad went increasingly off the rails. He saw the problems. He understood the need for change. In the books, he was planning to call a great council, basically a Westerosi intervention, to oust Aerys and take the throne himself. And honestly, that's still going to happen here, just without all the messy rebellion and dead Starks and Targaryen babies getting their heads smashed. Think about it. Rhaegar's married to Jocelyn, solidifying the Baratheon alliance. He's got a bunch of healthy kids, securing the Targaryen dynasty. He's got the respect of the people, the lords. Everyone, basically, except maybe Tywin Lannister, who's probably still simmering in his own resentment juice after getting passed over for hand again. So, Rhaegar starts making moves, subtly at first, talking to lords, gauging their feelings. About Aerys, maybe even whispering a few not-so-subtle hints about the king's eccentricities. And you know, people are going to listen. They've seen Aerys's behavior firsthand. They've heard the whispers, the rumors. They're tired of the paranoia, the random executions, the burning of people alive for kicks. Slowly but surely, Rhaegar starts building support. He's not Robert Baratheon, charging headfirst into a fight. He's a strategist, a politician. He's playing the long game, gathering allies, solidifying his position. Stannis, being the ever-dutiful guy he is probably right there by his side, offering his unwavering loyalty and strategic advice. Ned Stark, still a little awkward but fiercely loyal to Stannis and the Baratheons, would be a staunch supporter. And what about Aerys? Well, he's probably too far gone to notice what's happening right under his nose, or if he does notice, he dismisses it as Rhaegar being Rhaegar. My son, the dreamer, he'd probably sneer. Always lost in his books and his prophecies. He wouldn't dare challenge me. Famous last words, right? Eventually, Rhaegar feels he has enough support. He calls for a great council, just like he planned in the original timeline. But this time, it's not happening amidst a bloody rebellion. It's happening in a relatively peaceful environment. The lords of Westeros gather, not to choose sides in a war, but to decide the future of the realm. And the evidence against Aerys is overwhelming. His madness, his cruelty, his questionable hygiene habits. It's all laid bare for everyone to see. And while there might be a few lords who are still loyal to Aerys out of fear or tradition, the vast majority are ready for a change. So, the vote is taken. And it's almost unanimous. Aerys Targaryen is declared unfit to rule. He's stripped of his title, his power, everything, and Rhaegar Targaryen is declared the new King of Westeros. King of Westeros. All right, everyone, let's dive into this alternate reality where Robert Baratheon isn't. Prepare yourselves, because things are about to get interesting. We're rewinding the clock to Storm's End, where a storm is brewing, literally. Instead of a boisterous baby boy, Lady Cassana Estamont finds herself holding a daughter. A healthy, squalling daughter who, after much deliberation, is named Jocelyn Baratheon. Now, I know what you're thinking. Roberta would have been the obvious choice, right? But nah, the Baratheons are a bit more creative than that. They went digging through the history books, dusted off some family lineage, and landed on Jocelyn, a nod to Jocelyn Baratheon, the half-sister of Jaehaerys the Fair, wife of Aemon Targaryen, and mother of Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who never was. A fitting name for a girl destined for greatness, wouldn't you say? Jocelyn grows up in Storm's End, surrounded by the wind-swept cliffs and the constant roar of the sea. Her parents dote on her, as any parents would. A year later, Stannis arrives, right on schedule. But here's where the script flips. Stannis is now the second-born, the heir presumptive, but Jocelyn is the firstborn. Their childhood is interesting. Stannis, as we know, is a pretty serious kid. Quiet, reserved, always a little bit intense. Jocelyn, she's the life of the party. Confident, outgoing, makes friends wherever she goes. Think Robert, but in a dress. She's everything Stannis isn't, and it casts a long shadow. Now, Jocelyn isn't exactly being groomed for leadership in the same way Stannis is. He's the heir, after all, so no daily sword practice or intense strategy sessions for her. However, she's no damsel in distress either. She loves riding, enjoys a good hunt, even if she's not the best shot, and has a keen interest in hawking. Remember Robert's falcon thunderclap and Stannis's hawk Proudwing? Well, imagine something similar, but with Jocelyn. She just gets it, you know? Her hawk soars higher, strikes faster, and Stannis is left in the dust. Again, this dynamic, this constant feeling of being second best, it eats at Stannis. There's love there, sure, but also a healthy dose of jealousy and resentment. He's the heir, the one who's supposed to be strong and capable, but Jocelyn just seems naturally better at everything. It's like she's more of a man than he is, which, let's face it, is probably true. To try and smooth things over and help Stannis find his footing, Stefan and Cassana decide to foster him. A common practice in Westeros, designed to build connections and provide valuable experience. In our original timeline, Stannis spent his youth with Maester Cressen, who acted as a father figure. But in this version, he's sent to the Vale to be fostered by none other than Jon Arryn. Talk about a change of scenery. The Vale is a world away from Storm's End, both geographically and culturally. For a shy boy like Stannis, it's a daunting prospect. But he settles in eventually, finding solace in the structure and discipline that Jon Arryn provides. And here's where another key relationship takes shape. Stannis meets a young Ned Stark. Now, Robert and Ned became fast friends almost instantly. But Stannis and Ned, not so much. They're both reserved, quiet types. It takes time for them to connect, but connect they do. They find common ground in their shared sense of duty, their quiet strength, and their awkwardness. They open up to each other, sharing their insecurities and anxieties. Ned confesses his feelings of living in Brandon's shadow, how his older brother seems to excel in every way. And Stannis, he relates, he understands the frustration of being overshadowed, of feeling like you're always coming in second place. This shared experience, this mutual understanding, forms the bedrock of their friendship. As time passes, Stannis starts visiting Storm's End, and he brings Ned along with him. Which means, of course, that Ned gets to meet Lady Jocelyn. Now, let's be clear, Jocelyn is a stunner. Think Robert Baratheon in his prime, but, well, a woman. Ned, being the honorable and slightly awkward guy that he is instantly smitten. He gets flustered, stumbles over his words, and generally makes a fool of himself whenever she's around. Jocelyn, of course, notices. She teases him mercilessly, poking fun at his shyness and comparing him to her equally awkward brother. She doesn't realize he has a crush on her, of course. She just sees an easy target for some good-natured ribbing. Imagine the scene, Jocelyn, tall and vibrant, teasing the shorter, perpetually flustered Ned Stark. It's all in good fun, of course. The Baratheons and the Starks get along famously, and Stannis? He gets along well with the Stark family too, visiting Winterfell alongside Ned. But unlike Robert, he doesn't develop any feelings for Lyanna. He sees her strong personality, her fiery spirit, and is instantly reminded of his sister Jocelyn, which, for him, is a major turn-off. Now, in this alternate timeline, it's easy to imagine Ned falling for Jocelyn in much the same way Robert fell for Lyanna. A case of unrequited love, fueled by admiration and a healthy dose of awkwardness. But here's the kicker. Jocelyn isn't opposed to marrying Ned. He's a much better catch than Robert ever was, loyal and honorable. But fate, as it often does, has other plans. Because across the narrow sea, King Aerys is getting antsy. Prince Rhaegar has reached manhood and needs to produce heirs. Aerys, paranoid as ever, is wary of Tywin Lannister and his ambitions. He remembers Tywin offering Cersei as a bride for Rhaegar, and he sees it as a power grab. After the defiance of Duskendale, Aerys gives Steffon Baratheon a seat on the small council. Instead of sending Steffon to find a bride for Rhaegar across the sea, leading to his death and the emergence of Patchface, Aerys demands he bring Jocelyn Baratheon to court to become Rhaegar's bride. It makes perfect sense from Aerys's twisted perspective. First, it's a massive snub to Tywin. Second, it keeps the bloodline pure. The Baratheons, after all, have Targaryen blood flowing through their veins. Steffon Baratheon's mother was a Targaryen princess, making Steffon and Aerys cousins. And their children related. So with Jocelyn around, Steffon doesn't have to go on that fateful voyage overseas. He and Cassana live. Robert never experiences that trauma. And Patchface, well, Patchface remains a footnote in history. Jocelyn and Rhaegar likely met before this arrangement was made. Steffon Baratheon brought Robert and Stannis to court as children. It is likely Jocelyn also attended. With some level of rapport between them outside their blood, I think Rhaegar and Jocelyn would get along fairly well as they prepare to get married. Rhaegar, melancholic but kind, and Jocelyn, who has a pretty easy time making friends on her own, would find a way to connect. I don't really see a reason for them not to get along. The wedding is a grand affair, a symbol of the union between houses Targaryen and Baratheon. Ned is there, of course, probably standing beside Stannis, silently lamenting his bad luck. And then, children. Unlike Elia Martell, Jocelyn has no trouble conceiving. She pops out kids like Robert popped out bastards in canon. First, a daughter, Rhaenys, with her mother's hair and her father's purple eyes, like the Rhaenys from the books. Then a son, Aegon, with the classic Targaryen look. And then twins, because why not? A girl, Visenya, because Rhaegar seems to be recreating the Targaryen trinity, and a boy, Daeron, named after one of Rhaegar's brothers who died in infancy. It's a solid union, a fruitful alliance. And by marrying Jocelyn, Rhaegar actually improves. His relationship with his father, Aerys never liked Elia Martell with his prejudices against the Dornish. But Jocelyn, she has a closer connection to the family, and even if her looks don't quite match the Targaryen ideal, Aerys favors her because of her heritage. Of course, Tywin and Aerys' dynamic worsens as King Aerys names Jaime to the Kingsguard, leading to Tywin quitting in protest. Making this even worse, King Aerys would likely name Steffon Baratheon as Hand of the King. The Baratheons get everything the Lannisters have ever wanted: the handship, the queen consort, and heirs to the Iron Throne. Relations between the lions and the dragons are tense, but that is about all the tension I see getting out of this story. It seems that by marrying Jocelyn and having a surplus of children, this pretty much solves the issues that lead to Robert's rebellion in the books. All right, folks, let's dive into how the winds of change begin to blow, shaping alliances and stirring hearts in this alternate Westeros. Remember, we're exploring what might have happened if Robert Baratheon was born Jocelyn Baratheon. So Stannis, ever the dutiful son, and let's be honest, a bit of a prickly pear, still gets fostered. His parents, Lord Steffon and Lady Cassana, likely hope that a change of scenery and the influence of a respected figure like Jon Arryn can help him blossom. And where better than the Vale? It's peaceful, orderly, and Arryn is known for his even-handedness. Now, in the original timeline, Robert and Ned become practically inseparable during their time in the Vale. Two young wolves forging a bond that would shape the fate of Westeros. But Stannis isn't exactly the buddy-buddy type. He's more strategic. However, hear me out. Ned Stark, even before the rebellion, wasn't exactly a social butterfly himself. He was honorable, quiet, and preferred the company of books and duty to boisterous revelry. So, while Stannis might not spark the same kind of instant camaraderie with Ned that Robert did, their shared sense of responsibility and perhaps even a touch of melancholy allows a different, perhaps deeper kind of bond to form. They wouldn't be joking around and getting into drunken brawls like Robert and Ned. Instead, picture them poring over histories in the library, discussing strategy and tactics, or even just silently observing the bustling courtyard. Theirs is a friendship built on mutual respect, shared values, and a quiet understanding that transcends words. It's a slow burn, but no less potent for it. And here's where it gets interesting. During Stannis' visits back to Storm's End, Ned, of course, accompanies him. He's practically Stannis' shadow, learning about leadership and governance alongside his friend. And that means Ned is thrown into the orbit of Lady Jocelyn Baratheon. Now imagine young Jocelyn. We've established she possesses that Baratheon charisma, that ability to light up a room. She's confident, witty, and probably just a touch mischievous. The antithesis of Ned's own reserved nature. Remember Ashara Dane? In canon, Ned was supposedly smitten with her at the tourney of Harrenhal, but was too shy to act on it. I'm going to posit that Jocelyn Baratheon becomes Ned's new Ashara. Every time Ned visits Storm's End, he finds himself utterly tongue-tied around Jocelyn. He trips over his words, blushes furiously, and generally makes a fool of himself. He can. face down seasoned knights in the training yard, but Jocelyn's mere presence turns him into a stammering mess. And Jocelyn, being the quick-witted woman she is, notices. She teases him mercilessly, but in a playful, affectionate way. "Honestly, Ned," she might say with a laugh, "you're braver on the battlefield than you are in a conversation. I swear, Stannis has more charm than you, and he makes gargoyles look lively. It's all in good fun, of course. Jocelyn wouldn't intentionally hurt Ned's feelings, but she can't resist poking fun at his awkwardness. She might even suspect he has a little crush, but she's not entirely sure. Ned is so reserved, so careful, that it's hard to read him. Think of it like this. Ned is completely at ease with Stannis, discussing matters of state, sharing strategies, even confiding his anxieties about Winterfell and his family. But around Jocelyn, all that composure vanishes. He becomes a boy again, filled with nervous energy and a longing he can't quite articulate. It's a classic unrequited crush, amplified by the fact that Jocelyn is his best friend's sister, making any potential pursuit even more complicated. He admires her strength, her confidence, and her ability to command a room. She's everything he isn't, and that's precisely what draws him to her. But this budding infatuation isn't just a simple schoolboy crush. It has the potential to shape Ned's character, his worldview, and his understanding of love and duty. Seeing Jocelyn's natural leadership, her genuine concern for her people, might even influence his own approach to ruling Winterfell. He starts to realize that strength isn't just about wielding a sword. It's about compassion, intelligence, and the ability to inspire others. However, while Ned is struggling to string two coherent sentences together in Jocelyn's presence, things are brewing in King's Landing. Aerys Targaryen, the Mad King, is growing increasingly paranoid and unpredictable. The defiance of Duskendale has left him deeply scarred, convinced that everyone is plotting against him. Tywin Lannister, ever the ambitious and calculating hand of the king, is a constant source of irritation for Aerys. The king sees Tywin's power and influence as a threat, and he's determined to diminish the Lannisters' standing in court. Now, in the original timeline, Aerys rejected Tywin's offer to marry Cersei to Rhaegar, viewing the Lannisters as mere servants, unfit to mingle with the royal blood. This fuels Tywin's resentment and sets the stage for the Lannisters' eventual betrayal during Robert's rebellion. But in this alternate timeline, Aerys's paranoia takes a slightly different turn. He still distrusts Tywin, but now he sees a different path to undermine the Lannisters. Instead of searching for a Valyrian bride across the narrow sea, Aerys eyes the Baratheons, specifically Jocelyn. The Baratheons, after all, have Targaryen blood in their veins. Steffon Baratheon's mother was a Targaryen princess, making him a cousin to Aerys himself. And while Jocelyn might not have the pure Valyrian features Aerys craves, she's still a more palatable option than a Lannister. Aerys sees a marriage between Jocelyn and Rhaegar as a way to strengthen the Targaryen dynasty, solidify his own power, and, most importantly, snub Tywin Lannister. It's a political move, driven by paranoia and a desire for control. This is where the tension truly begins to ratchet up. Aerys summons Steffon Baratheon to King's Landing, ostensibly to discuss matters of state. But the true purpose of the visit is to gauge Jocelyn's suitability as a bride for Rhaegar. Steffon, ever loyal to the crown, is initially flattered by the king's attention. He brings Jocelyn with him to court, unaware of Aerys's true intentions. Jocelyn, however, is more perceptive. She senses the underlying tension in the Red Keep, the whispers and intrigues that swirl around the court. She observes Aerys's increasingly erratic behavior, his obsession with fire, and his growing distrust of those around him. She sees the simmering resentment between Aerys and Tywin, the veiled insults and power plays that dominate courtly life, and she meets Rhaegar Targaryen. Rhaegar, even in this altered timeline, is still a figure of immense charisma and quiet intensity. He's drawn to Jocelyn's vibrant personality, her sharp wit, and her genuine concern for the common people. They find themselves engaging in deep conversations about art, music, and the burdens of leadership. But Jocelyn also sees the melancholy that haunts Rhaegar's eyes, the weight of expectation he carries on his shoulders. She senses his growing disillusionment with his father's reign and his desire for a better future for Westeros. A bond begins to form between them, a connection built on mutual respect and a shared longing for a more just and peaceful realm. But looming over their budding connection is the shadow of Aerys Targaryen and his manipulative schemes. The stage is set for a royal match, a political alliance that could change the course of Westeros history. But will Jocelyn Baratheon be a pawn in Aerys's game? Or will she find a way to forge her own destiny? And what will this mean for Ned Stark, still nursing his unrequited affections from afar? The game, as they say, is afoot, and the stakes are higher than ever before. All right, folks, buckle up, because we're about to dive headfirst into some serious Westerosi political maneuvering. We left off with the news that King Aerys, our favorite pyromaniac with a penchant for burning people alive, is on the hunt for a bride for his son, Prince Rhaegar. Now, in the original timeline, this led to a whole heap of trouble, culminating in Lyanna Stark Robert's rebellion, and well, you know the rest. But remember, we're rewriting history here, folks. We're dealing with a Lady Jocelyn Baratheon, not a Robert, and that one little change is about to ripple through Westeros like wildfire, pun intended. So, Aerys, still paranoid as ever after the defiance of Duskendale, is convinced that Tywin Lannister is plotting against him. He's seen Tywin's ambition, the glint in his eye, and he knows the man wants his daughter Cersei on the Iron Throne. And let's be honest, Aerys probably wasn't entirely wrong about Tywin's intentions, even if his reasoning was a bit, let's say, eccentric. In our original timeline, to throw a wrench in Tywin's plans, Aerys sends Steffon Baratheon on a wild goose chase across the narrow sea, tasking him with finding a Valyrian bride for Rhaegar. A Valyrian bride, as if they just grow on trees. It was a fool's errand, a way to keep Steffon occupied and away from King's Landing, and tragically, it ended in Steffon and Cassana's deaths in Shipbreaker Bay. A truly terrible loss. It also deprived us of Patchface, but in this alternate timeline, Steffon doesn't need to go traipsing around the world in search of a mythical Valyrian princess. Why? Because he has a perfectly good, strong, and, dare I say, politically advantageous daughter right at home, Lady Jocelyn Baratheon. Think about it. Aerys is trying to achieve a few key goals here. First, he wants to stick it to Tywin. He wants to make it clear that the Lannisters, despite their wealth and power, are nothing more than glorified servants in his eyes. Marrying Rhaegar to Cersei would be admitting defeat, a concession to Tywin's ambition. He'd rather swallow fire. Second, Aerys wants to keep the Targaryen bloodline pure. Now, we all know how Targaryens get about pure bloodlines. It's a bit concerning, but in Aerys's twisted mind, maintaining that Targaryen heritage is paramount. He ultimately settled for Elia Martell, but the Baratheons have a stronger claim to Targaryen ancestry than the Martells. Steffon's own mother was a Targaryen princess, Rhael Targaryen, the daughter of Aegon Fee. This makes Steffon and Aerys cousins, and Jocelyn their grandniece. That's way more closely related than the Martells, a house who only intermarried with the Targaryens once upon a time. Let's not forget, this also reinforces the Baratheons' already strong ties to the Iron Throne. Their ancestor, Orys Baratheon, was rumored to be the bastard half-brother of Aegon the Conqueror himself. So the Baratheons are basically Targaryens by blood, tradition, and possibly by birth, depending on what theories you subscribe to. So, instead of sending Steffon on a suicide mission across the sea, Aerys summons him to court and issues a royal decree. Lady Jocelyn Baratheon will be betrothed to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen. Now I can practically hear Robert, or well, the alternate version of him buried somewhere, spinning in his grave at the thought of his female counterpart marrying the man he hates more than anyone. The irony is almost too much to bear. But hey, that's what makes alternate history so darn fascinating, right? The twists, the turns, the sheer what-ifs that make you question everything you thought you knew. The biggest win here is, of course, Stefan and Cassana Baratheon don't die. They live to see their daughter marry the crown prince, a victory for House Baratheon and a significant shift in the political landscape. Patchface remains safely in wherever Maester Crescent kept him locked up in Dragonstone. Now, Jocelyn and Rhaegar might not be complete strangers. Remember, in the original timeline, Stefan brought young Robert and Stannis to court. It's likely he did the same with Jocelyn and Stannis. So, Jocelyn and Rhaegar might have met during those visits, establishing a level of familiarity and rapport that wouldn't exist with a complete outsider. And let's be honest, Rhaegar and Jocelyn probably get along fairly well. Rhaegar, despite his melancholic nature, is generally regarded as kind, intelligent, and well-liked. And Jocelyn, with her outgoing personality and ease of making friends, shouldn't have much trouble connecting with the prince. I don't see any fundamental roadblocks to them having a successful marriage. So the wedding is arranged, a grand affair with all the pomp and circumstance befitting a royal union. Houses Targaryen and Baratheon are united, solidifying their alliance and sending a clear message to the rest of Westeros. The Targaryens are strong, and they have the backing of the Stormlands. Of course, this wedding doesn't sit well with everyone. Ned Stark is probably somewhere in the background, awkwardly congratulating Stannis while secretly lamenting his unrequited feelings for Jocelyn. He's the Robert in this scenario, the one who pines for the girl he can't have. He'll be just as devoted to Jocelyn's family as Robert was, a loyal friend to Stannis and Renly. But the real fireworks are happening in the Westerlands. Tywin Lannister is absolutely seething. His carefully laid plans, his dreams of seeing Cersei on the Iron Throne, have been crushed. The Baratheons, those upstart Stormlanders, have stolen his prize. Aerys's snub is a public humiliation, a blow to the Lannister pride that Tywin will not soon forget. But the real magic of this scenario is what happens after the wedding. Let's talk heirs. Remember how Elia Martell had difficulty conceiving children, how she struggled to give Rhaegar the heirs he needed. Well, Jocelyn Baratheon doesn't seem to have that problem. She pops out children like Robert Baratheon popping out bastards. No offense to Gendry, let's imagine the Targaryen Baratheon offspring. First, a girl, perhaps named Rhaenys, after the sister of Aegon the Conqueror. She inherits her mother's dark hair but her father's violet eyes, a striking combination. Like the original Rhaenys, the queen who never was from the book version in Fire and Blood, she'll be the apple of her father's eye. Next, a boy, Aegon, with the traditional Targaryen silver hair and violet eyes. The heir apparent, the one destined to sit on the Iron Throne. And then, because why not, let's throw in twins, mirroring Robert's penchant for illegitimate children. A girl, Visenya, completing the Aegon, Visenya and Rhaenys trinity, and a boy, Daeron, named after one of Rhaegar's brothers who died in infancy. With a healthy crop of heirs secured, the succession is no longer in question. The Targaryen dynasty is stable, and the future of Westeros looks surprisingly bright, and the relationship between Aerys and Rhaegar, it improves significantly. Aerys was never fond of Elia Martell or her children, harboring prejudice against the Dornish and even expressing disgust at Rhaenys's Dornish features. But with Jocelyn as Rhaegar's wife and their children sharing Baratheon and Targaryen blood, Aerys is more accepting, more willing to embrace his grandchildren. After all, they're family, in a way Elia and her kids never truly were in his eyes. Of course, not everything is sunshine and rainbows. Tywin and Aerys's relationship continues to deteriorate. Aerys, ever the petty tyrant, eventually names Jaime Lannister to the King's Guard, effectively disinheriting him and adding insult to injury. Tywin, enraged, resigns as Hand of the King, and who does Aerys appoint in his place? Steffon Baratheon, another slap in the face to the Lannisters. The Baratheons are ascendant, enjoying the power and prestige that Tywin so desperately craved. Think about it from Tywin's perspective. Steffon becomes Hand. His daughter is now queen, and her children are heirs to the throne, while his own daughter is rebuffed and his position lost. Things suck for Tywin. Now here's where things get really interesting. With Jocelyn by his side and a stable succession secured, Rhaegar never has a reason to pursue Lyanna Stark. The entire chain of events that led to Robert's rebellion is effectively erased from the timeline. Lyanna remains in Winterfell, betrothed to Robert, and Jon Snow is never born. That's right, Jon Snow, the king in the north, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. He ceases to exist. Some of you might be screaming at your screens right now, but hey, that's the price of alternate history, right? We have to make sacrifices, but what about Rhaegar's plans for change? In the original timeline, he was disillusioned with his father's reign and was rumored to be planning to overthrow him. With Jocelyn's support and the stability of their family, Rhaegar still might decide to challenge his father's rule. The madness of King Aerys is undeniable, and many lords of Westeros will feel the crown could do with a leader more fit to rule. Given enough time, Rhaegar might very well succeed in peacefully deposing his father, ushering in an era of peace and prosperity. The Stormlands would be behind him, and perhaps even some of the other great houses who have seen Aerys's madness up close. Viserys Targaryen, Rhaegar's younger brother, also benefits from this new timeline. He doesn't have to flee across the narrow sea, begging for scraps and dreaming of reclaiming the Iron Throne. He grows up in the comfort of the Red Keep, with his family around him, and Daenerys Targaryen, well, she might not exist at all. Her conception in the original timeline was a direct result of the chaos and violence of Robert's rebellion. There is no rebellion here, so there is no wildfire plot, no Carlton Chelstead being burned alive, no assault on Queen Rhaella, no Daenerys, and that also means Queen Rhaella dies of old age, surrounded by her family, able to see her grandchildren. So, there you have it. If Robert Baratheon had been born Jocelyn, the Targaryen dynasty might have been saved, the realm might have enjoyed an era of peace, and Jon Snow might never have existed. It's a bittersweet pill to swallow, but hey, that's the Game of Thrones, right? You win or you get erased from the timeline. This alternate timeline paints a vastly different picture of Westeros, one where the Baratheons and Targaryens are allies, the Lannisters are sidelined, and the threat of rebellion is non-existent, at least until the White Walkers show up. But that's a story for another video, folks. All right, guys, so Jocelyn and Rhaegar, they get married, right? Big whoopla. Targaryen and Baratheon banners all over the place. But the real story begins after the vows. I mean, a political marriage is one thing, but actually, making it work, that's a whole different kettle of fish. And in this scenario, it actually does work. Like, surprisingly well. See, Rhaegar, despite all his brooding and outplaying, he's not stupid. He sees the value in this alliance. Jocelyn brings a certain earthiness to the Targaryen court. She's not caught up in the whole dragon dreams and destiny thing like Aerys. She's practical, she's strong-willed, Baratheon blood, duh. And she's got a genuine connection to the people. Rhaegar recognizes that this is exactly what the Targaryen dynasty needs. A little bit of Storm's End grit to balance out the King's Landing madness. And Jocelyn? She ain't no dummy either. She might not be head over heels in love with Rhaegar from day one, but she respects him. He's intelligent, he's relatively sane, and he's actually nice to her. Plus, let's be honest, he's Rhaegar Targaryen. He's got that whole tragic prince vibe going on. It's not hard to see the appeal, even if she's nursing a secret crush on a certain quiet Stark in Winterfell. So they start building a life together. And here's where things get interesting. They actually click. They find common ground. They challenge each other. Rhaegar appreciates Jocelyn's blunt honesty, and Jocelyn admires Rhaegar's intellectual curiosity. They're not exactly Romeo and Juliet, but they're a damn sight better than Aerys and Rhaella ever were, and then come the heirs, one after another. We're talking Targaryen babies galore. First, as we mentioned, a girl, Rhaenys, named, of course, to evoke that glorious past of the Targaryen queen who never was. Jocelyn gives birth to Rhaenys without any of the birthing complications that Elia Martell suffered in canon. Now I know what you're thinking, but what about Aerys? Is he just gonna go quietly into the night? Probably not. He's still a madman after all. He might try to resist, to rally support, but he's isolated, weakened, and surrounded by enemies. Any attempt to regain power would be quickly and decisively crushed. He would likely be confined to a comfortable but secure location, perhaps even under the watchful eye of Stannis Baratheon. Somewhere with plenty of books and wildfire-free chambers. And so, Rhaegar takes the Iron Throne. Not through bloodshed and war, but through diplomacy and political maneuvering. He inherits a realm that's stable, prosperous, and united. He's got a loving wife, healthy children, and the support of the vast majority of the lords. He's in a damn good position to usher in a new era of peace and prosperity. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, but what about Daenerys? Isn't she supposed to be the chosen one, the breaker of chains, the mother of dragons? Well, here's the thing. In this timeline, Daenerys doesn't exist. Remember how Daenerys was conceived right before the sack of King's Landing? Aerys goes full Mad King, assaults his wife, boom, there's Dany. But without the rebellion, no sack of King's Landing, no increasingly insane Aerys, no assault, and therefore no Daenerys. Now, to be honest, I actually think Queen Rhaella would still pass due to the stress of the transition in power, as it was never explicitly stated what killed her. Now, some of you might be sad about that. After all, Daenerys is a pretty badass, good character. But honestly, I think Westeros is better off without her in this scenario. Think about it. Without Daenerys, there are no dragons, no burning of King's Landing, no Khaleesi this, Khaleesi that. The realm is just calmer. And Viserys? Well, he doesn't have to spend his entire life running from Robert's assassins, begging for support, and generally being a whiny, entitled brat. He actually gets to grow up in the Red Keep, surrounded by his family, learning how to be a proper prince. He might even turn out to be a decent guy. Maybe. Okay, probably not. But still, he has a chance to be better. So, what does Rhaegar do? As king, well, he starts by addressing the issues that led to Aerys' downfall. He reforms the government, listens to his advisors, and tries to be a fair and just ruler. He probably spends a lot of time studying history, trying to learn from the mistakes of his predecessors, and he relies heavily on Jocelyn and Stannis for support and guidance. Jocelyn's charisma and political acumen would be invaluable, and Stannis' unwavering sense of duty and strategic mind would keep Rhaegar grounded. Ned Stark, as well, would likely be appointed to a position of great responsibility, perhaps even Hand of the King, if Stannis declined. He probably also tries to mend fences with the Lannisters. He might not like Tywin, but he recognizes his power and influence. He might offer him a seat on the small council or some other position of authority just to keep him happy and prevent him from causing trouble. Though let's be real, Tywin's always going to be scheming, plotting, and trying to manipulate things to his advantage. It's just in his nature. But overall, Rhaegar's reign would be a time of peace and prosperity. The realm would be united, the economy would be booming, and the people would be happy. For a while anyway, because let's face it, this is Westeros. Something's always got to go wrong. But what could go wrong? Well, the White Walkers are still out there, lurking in the far north, and eventually they're gonna come knocking. And without Daenerys and her dragons, Westeros might be in serious trouble, but that's a story for another time. For now, let's just bask in the glow of this alternate timeline, where Robert Baratheon was born a woman, and Westeros was spared the horrors of Robert's rebellion. A timeline where Rhaegar Targaryen actually gets to be the king he was always meant to be, and where, for a brief shining moment, peace actually reigns in the Seven Kingdoms.